Apologies for a delay of a minute or two. My name is Suman. I'm a corporate lawyer. I'm a partner of a law firm, Kk Mylsamy and Associates LLP, who's the main organizer of this webinar. It is my pleasure to moderate this very important and interesting webinar. I thank all of you for taking.
Yes, Suman sir, we are not hearing your voice. Can you please?
Thank you, Vikas ji. Let me call Suman.
Yeah. Ask to mute her video. His video, sorry.
Just spoke to Mr. Suman, just having some bandwidth issues. He's coming in less than a minute. He's just rejoining now.
Sorry, I got disconnected. So it's my pleasure to introduce Ms. Sugna Ramurthy. Ms. Sugna is the Secretary General of the Indo-Japan Chamber of Commerce and Industry. She has worked single-mindedly for about 25 years in bringing Japan and India closer in many ways, including in educational, cultural, and economic fields. She's organized many industrial delegations for IJCCI from India to Japan to connect businesses in India and Japan. She also manages a professional language school at IJCCI. I now request Suguna-san to give her opening remarks.
Thank you, Suman-san. It's indeed nice of you to have given me a very nice introduction. Good day, konnichiwa. Honorable Consul General for Osaka, Kobe, Mr. Shyam, Mr. Yuko Yasunaga, Mr. Fdi Gilligan, distinguished speakers at today's webinar, and all the participants, my warm greetings to you. Indeed, I consider it a great honor to have our Consul General, Mr. Shyam, with us. He's been extremely supportive in all our activities, and my warm greetings and special thanks to our Consul General today. Ladies and gentlemen, we have experts from Japan and India to share their knowledge on the potentials for cooperation mutually beneficial to the Indian and the Japanese businesses. As all of us know, Japan and India are eternal friends and natural partners. The relationship is so deep-rooted, dating back to centuries. There is commonality in culture and business. The prosperity of Japan and India would usher in prosperity for Asia as well. In recent years, the cooperation between our two governments have grown leaps and bounds. Japan's contribution in Indian infrastructure, skill development, and strategic cooperation are all noteworthy. We have already set the trend for other countries to follow the Japan-India model. On the business side, however, I feel the cooperation between our two businesses is yet to be fully realized to exploit the potential. If you look at the number of Japanese companies in India, at the moment, it stands at 5,000 plus. And in Tamil Nadu, it is around 600. Indeed, I would say that Tamil Nadu is a land of opportunity. And probably after the new industrial policy presentation by Mr. Baloo, the Japanese will have a better understanding about India and also about Tamil Nadu in total. Considering India's vast potential land area, population, domestic market demand, and potential for being a manufacturing base to cater to overseas market, I feel the Indian business potential should be fully harnessed by the Japanese businesses. At the same time, we do understand that the Japanese and the Indian business community are keen to come together for mutual benefit. One often wonders what could be the reason which prevents their engagement. If you look at it from the Japanese point of view, besides language barrier, it is said that the kind of trust it expects from the Indian companies, the commitment in meeting the deadlines and promises, etc., are not being given adequate attention. On the other side, the Indian companies would lament that the Japanese are slow decision makers and it is difficult to win over their confidence. I would like to convey to my Japanese friends that there cannot be a better partner than the Indian business community to work with. The Indian business, especially the SMEs, believe in long-term relationship carried over to generations down the line successfully. The successful Indian companies doing business with their Japanese counterparts for decades always cherish the values of their Japanese counterparts. In order to bridge the gap between the two businesses, the chambers of commerce and economic institutions in both the countries, I feel, must get together and work closely. Bilateral organizations with a special focus on Japan, like the Indo-Japan Chamber of Commerce and Industry, IJCCI, can play a pivotal role in building the confidence between the two businessmen. We in IJCCI, between the years 2005 and 2016, have taken 7 industrial delegations to Japan, arranged meetings with the city government agencies, prefectural governments, with the Japanese chambers, and with the Japanese businessmen. We have received innumerable business missions from Japan and organized B2B with their Indian counterparts. As a result, in all humility, I submit that there are good many success stories today, but the gap is still wide and requires stringent follow-up exercise. IJCCI has over 30 years of good relationship with the Japanese prefectural governments, city governments, chambers of commerce and other economic bodies from Tokyo up to Saga. IJCCI has recently established a business facilitation desk to bring in the Japanese and the Indian businessmen closer and provide them with all necessary inputs, help them overcome the language barrier, give them the required confidence, and help contribute a smooth and successful takeoff. While sharing authentic company information, economic updates, etc., our chamber would closely stand with the respective Japanese and the Indian companies and make the business startup process a pleasant and a rewarding experience. IJCCI enjoys the goodwill of several state governments and the nodal agencies and the central government in India, and its membership is spread all over India. Also, IJCCI is a service organization supported by doyens of Indian industry. And so I appeal to the Japanese business community to get in touch with IJCCI, and we will do our best to make your business idea take roots in the Indian soil. Thank you. Domo arigatou gozaimashita.
Thank you, ma'am, for giving us the opening remarks. I now take the honor and pleasure to introduce Mr. B. Shyam, Consul General of India, Osaka and Kobe. Mr. Balasubramanian Shyam joined the Indian Foreign Service in the year 2000. After a brief training attachment in Delhi, the first stint in Cairo, Egypt, was a language training study Arabic at the American University Cairo, followed by work as second secretary dealing with media and later as director, Maulana Azad Center for Indian Culture there. Returning to headquarters as Undersecretary of Iran and Afghanistan, and later as Undersecretary Pakistan, gave an opportunity to work with India, Iran, and India-Pakistan bilateral relations. Mr. Shyam was posted to Colombo, Sri Lanka as First Secretary Political between the years 2007 and 2010. This was followed by a posting to Dhaka, Bangladesh, where he served as Commercial Consular, overseeing trade relations between the two countries. Returning to New Delhi in the year 2013, he was posted as Director of Pakistan till 2015. He enjoyed the Indian Embassy in Yangon, Myanmar, as Deputy Chief of Mission for 3 years. He joined as Consul General of India, Osaka, Kobe, Japan on 1st August 2018. He holds a master's degree in molecular biology and biotechnology and was ICAR scientist before joining the service. Mr. Shyam is married and has a son and a daughter. So it's my pleasure to welcome you. I request you to kindly give your keynote speech. Mr. Shyam.
To all of you. As I speak, I will paste the Japanese text in the chat window, which will enable our Japanese friends also to be a part of this conversation. I first thank the IJCCI and Invest India for their efforts, and each of you attendees from the Japanese and the Indian side for participating in the online program on investment opportunities in India today. While the pandemic has inflicted several disruptions, it has also taught us useful lessons that can be expected to impact the manner in which we transact business. The COVID-19 supply chain disruption has emphasized the need for companies to de-risk and not keep all their eggs in one manufacturing facility in the globe. The Government of India has instituted the Atmanirbhar Bharat policy and Make in India initiative to de-risk supply chains and make India a component in the global supply chain and value process. With a view to attracting companies, a production-linked incentive scheme in 13 sectors has been launched by the government, which provides incentives linked to investment and production for companies in specific sectors in India. This has already started yielding dividend to foreign investors. For instance, in the area of ICT hardware, as of December 2020, the exports have increased to an all-time high of rupees 8,806 crores, which is yen 132 billion, owing to a PLI policy on electronics and mobile phone manufacture, which has straightaway benefited several foreign companies who in addition to incentives have profited from being able to procure items locally and as per their standards at an economic cost. I would like to caution here that the PLI scheme ties up manufacture and production of certain critical components in India for companies to be eligible for the benefits. This is to discourage ideas to bring items in a knockdown condition and just assemble them in India together. Coming to Japan, the Japanese products have always been in high regard and demand in India. This is because of their durability and high quality. Based on my experience here, I would like to answer a common question towards dispelling the notion among some in Japan that their products are priced out of the Indian market due to the high cost. Quite to the contrary, as Indian consumers are the most demanding in terms of value for money, most Japanese products are popular in India because they have the lowest lifespan cost compared to several competitors. It is therefore logical for anyone buying consumer durables, that is white goods, or such other expensive items, that he would like to see it work for its full lifespan rather than suffer repeat breakdowns. Many Japanese products that have entered early and are manufactured in India have good sales and service network, even in small towns and villages. Therefore, there is a need to enter the market first, get a foothold, and expand. As of October 2020, there are 1455 Japanese companies and 10,294 Japanese firms in India. As you can see from this very data, many companies have now expanded to open multiple branches, given the vast potential of the Indian market, which has strengths in democracy, demography, and hence the demand. Japan is the third largest foreign direct investor with cumulative investment of over 30.7 billion from 2000 to 2019. To such of those companies who have only been trading rather than manufacturing, I would like to caution that the window of opportunity appears to be closing in favor of your competitors due to their better leverages, rationalization of customs duty for imported products, and better networking and sales locally once the manufacturing starts. To give you an instance of support to local production, the government procural rules for tenders each up to rupees 200 crores or yen 3 billion give exclusivity to locally manufactured products. There are other presenters here today with us who will elaborate on industrial policy, FDI, tax incentives, and investment opportunities, who will add additional details to what I have to say today. The Japan Bank of International Cooperation Survey Report of the Japanese manufacturing companies overseas plans places India in the #2 position in terms of their medium-term prospects, but #1 in the long-term growth potential. Doing business in India has never been easier. Each and every state in India that we have engaged with have a dedicated investment cell that provides all facilities, land, power, water, sewerage connections, not to mention of good connectivity, which is already existing. Tamil Nadu, in addition, gives a fast response. Japanese companies might also consider partnership with Indian companies, including those present here, drawing from the experience of several such successful joint ventures. Like Indian and Japanese managers, I keep saying that most of these last a lifetime. This is particularly true of micro, small, and medium enterprises. To our potential Indian companies, I would like to advise them to continue to stay engaged and be patient, as Japanese companies take a lot of data, deliberation, and internal process to clear a partnership idea. But once they are with you, they will stay as productive partners, helping, advising, and supporting each other for several decades. We are here to follow up and help you in meetings, in interpretation, and such other facilitation measures. Opportunities are galore. And with these new limited period incentive schemes, early bird gets the worm, or as it is said in Japanese, Hayaoki wa Sanmon no Toku. So what are you waiting for? So thank you very much, ICCJ and Invest India, for giving me an opportunity for being able to address the esteemed members in the audience today. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for your very interesting introducing this Isuda. She's the senior assistant She worked in a healthcare startup in the USA, the year 2000. She worked and lived in Hong Kong for 7 years, where she co-founded 3 startups across various fields. She returned back last year and joined Invest India, where she serves as the senior AVP. Invest India is an investment facilitation agency set up under the aegis of DPIIT, which is the Ministry of Commerce of India. She heads all foreign direct investments under the Make in India program for a cluster of countries in the APAC region, Thailand, Malaysia, and all other Asian nations, and Australia and New Zealand as well. She is responsible for all the country outreach, strategy, facilitation, and central and state government level coordination for foreign investors from her regions. She graduated from her PGPM with a gold medal from Great Lakes Institute of Management, and she's completed BCom from the University of Madras. I request Ms. Saisudha to take over.
Thank you so much, Suman. Just wanted to check, is my audio and video right?
Yes, please.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much for the wonderful and kind introduction. It's always a pleasure to follow through the Consul General. Sir has made my job very, very easy. He has covered some of the key points that I wanted to cover. So I will just add the other points that he has not mentioned, and some of the points that I feel must be reiterated for the audiences. I will just take a minute to talk about that as well. Thank you so much, sir. So first of all, I want to thank everybody for this opportunity, this August forum, to give me this opportunity, number one. The next thing is I want to start off by introducing what we are doing and where we stand today, and what is the opportunity that India holds for Japanese investors, A, who are already there in India, and B, Japanese investors who have not yet set foot in India. So Invest India is the National Investment Promotion Agency that was set up under the aegis of DPIIT, Ministry of Commerce. The sole mandate and the purpose of Invest India is to act as the first point of reference for all the foreign investors who come and step foot in India. Some of the investors that come to India know the next big 10 years, the future belongs to India. They want to be a part of India, but they are not sure where to start. So that is one end of the array. The other end of the spectrum would be there are investors who exactly know where they want to go, which state, which they have done all their research, and they now want to get started. So the kind of queries that Invest India receives completely spreads across this entire gamut. Our main responsibility here is to talk to each of the investors, understand their business, and be able to advise them through a range of services, including location assessment, policy advocacy, understanding their businesses and advising them. Also one of the key aspects that Invest India covers. While this is about 60% or 70% of Invest India's key responsibilities under the Make in India program, the other major chunk that we take care of is the aftercare. So I strongly believe, all of Invest India strongly believes that the biggest ambassador to Indian opportunity are the businesses who are already existing in India. So they make the the best sales pitch for India. Clients who have already been happy here. So Invest India has a dedicated function that takes care of the aftercare. So it is also very heartening to know that we will be learning about the Tamil Nadu's industrial policy as well. So in that context, I want to highlight that Invest India very regularly works with all the state governments to ensure the foreign investors on those particular states have a smooth functioning of their businesses that are there. So, very recently in September 2020, Invest India collaborated with the Tamil Nadu Industries Department, specifically the Guidance Bureau of Tamil Nadu, to organize a one-on-one issue resolution summit for the Japanese companies who are already there in India. So some of the companies have been in India for 10 years and 15 years. Some of the companies have just landed in India 8 months ago, 1 year ago. So we worked with all the complete range of companies to understand how their business is going, if there are any bottlenecks faced by them, sit with them in a one-on-one meeting to identify how we can help them unravel the bottleneck. So that's one of the key things that we perform as well, key responsibilities of Invest India as well. So, like Consul General very rightly said, we have been receiving a lot of FDI from Japan into India. We have about 9,000 plus Japanese in India and about 30,000 plus Indians in Japan. And today we have about 1,400 plus, 1,450 plus Japanese manufacturing entities set up in India, of which about 600 plus are there in Tamil Nadu. So Tamil Nadu is one of the, if I may say so, one of the hubs and the industrial clusters for Japanese investments there in India as well. So I want to also reiterate the fact that Japan and India share a very, very special bond and a partnership. Japan is the fourth largest investor, FDI investor in India. In the last 20 years, Japan has invested close to about $33 billion in India. And in the last 1 year alone, close to $3 billion worth investments Japan has made into India. So this is during the peak of the pandemic. So that is the trust Japan has in India, and that is the output and the delivery the commitment India has been making very regularly to Japan, and to look at reinvestments coming from existing investors and the new investors as well. So the bilateral relationship with Japan and India goes back very, very long. It goes back to about the earliest evidence of both the countries having close relation was back to about 1,400 years ago. That is a true testament of the relationship and the strong friendship both the countries share as well. So I'm going to share my screen to bring out some of the key points that I would like to represent visually as well. Yes, I just want to make sure. Yeah. So like I said, Japan is the only country in the world that has 13 dedicated industrial townships that are there in India. So this is visual representation of where are all the townships that are there in India, what are all the upcoming GIT, Japanese industrial townships that are there in India. In Tamil Nadu alone, there are 3 industrial townships that are there in the state here. India today focuses heavily on infrastructural developments within the country. Our aim, our Prime Minister's vision is to achieve Atmanirbhar Bharat is also one of the key pillars of that goal is by providing world-class infrastructure to all the companies that are there in India as well. Today, we are talking about the 5 key pillars, 6 key pillars, right from roads and railways, airports, energy, power, as well as ports, as well as power. Today, we are talking about 600 plus railway station with 10,000 kilometer plus high-speed rails being laid. 400 airports are there and 100 new airports are works in progress. 66,000 kilometers of highway. Today, as we speak, every single day, 41 kilometers of high-class roads are being laid in India. We understand that high infrastructural quality to foreign investors mean decrease in the cost for them, decrease in the time for them, decrease in cost and time for the investors means increase in the revenue as well as the saving. So it is a win-win situation for the clients as well as the India as well. So that is what our government of India is working today on a day-to-day basis. So if you look at the pictures on your left-hand side, that's the pictorial representation of the Mumbai airport and the Meerut highway in 2013 and 14. So if you have already had the pleasure of visiting India, but a little earlier, I can assure you, you will not be able to recognize the India that is today. That is the pace at which the rapid and the aggressive pace of infrastructural developments that has been happening in the country. So the picture on the right is the Mumbai airport today as we speak and the Meerut highway today as we speak. Today, India is considered as one of the economic powerhouse. It took India about 60 years for us to achieve the first $1 trillion. But today, India, we are looking at achieving our next $1 trillion within the next 10 years. To achieving the next $10 trillion within the next 3 years. Today, we are the #1 in the global fintech adopter space, ranked #2 in the global retail index. We are the #1 in smartphone data consumer, and is the #3 in the regular consumer market as well, #1 in the internet users as well, and #3 in the world for largest consumer of oil. All these pose India to be an economic powerhouse. Today, India, our Prime Minister shares the vision of making India a $5 trillion opportunity market by 2025. And this opportunity is spread across these 24 sectors. Some of the key sectors that are very relevant and we wish India wishes to collaborate even further with Japan are the ones I have marked in red. In the auto and auto components industries put together, that is a market of $500 billion. In the chemicals, we have a market of about $304 billion that we are going towards achieving by 2025. Electronics, 400 billion, food processing, 500 billion, capital goods, 100 plus billion, and textiles, 200 plus billion dollar market. So that is an opportunity present for all the investors. There is enough opportunity, enough place for some of the world-class companies to come and take advantage of, like our Consul General said, Japan is a country known for its highest quality. So if I may recall an anecdote, some of our tier 2 and tier 3 cities, all the electronics, the people, when they go and purchase, when they go to a distributor or dealer to purchase, sometimes they may not be even aware of the name of the brand, but they know they want a Japanese product. They will go and ask the dealer saying, give me a good Japanese product for this particular consumer thing. So that has been the brand recall and brand image of the Japanese products has achieved today in India as well. So today we provide the top market across segments, across sectors for all investors who are looking at India today. We are the second largest smartphone market, second largest steel producer in the world, fourth largest oil refiner in the world. We have about 4 million passenger cars and commercial vehicles sold in 2019 alone. With respect to power and energy, we have the 5th largest installed capacity of renewable energy. The world is moving towards the new and emerging technologies and renewable power today. And so we are the 5th largest in that particular space as well. And we are the 6th largest producer of chemicals today. So this is a very interesting slide that I want to take a minute on. To show you how resilient India has been and how strong the resurgence India has seen and bounced back with at the helm of the pandemic, when the whole world was reeling under the pandemic. A very classic example is India did not have something called a PPE kit industry at all. But at the onset of pandemic, we figured out what is that need to be done, what is the demand, we put together an industry. This is one of, in a record time of almost under 60 days, a PPE manufacturing industry was set up in India. And today that industry is the 2nd largest industry in the world. And all this India has achieved in less than 60 days at the helm of the pandemic. Today, 90% of pre-COVID levels of e-commerce we have bounced back to as well. 70% of the pre-COVID levels of productions of two-wheelers we have achieved as well. In terms of exports, I'm going to reiterate what CG sir had mentioned. We have reached almost 100% of the pre-COVID lockdown levels for exports as well today. So this is a snapshot to tell you India is at the top of the things, and we are today standing stronger than ever despite the pandemic, and a resurgence is a strong message to all the investors who are looking at India for their further growth opportunity as well. In the ease of doing business, there are plenty of key reforms, incentives, subsidies that the government of India is working on to make it better and easy for all the Japanese investors on an everyday basis. And today our ease of doing business stands at 63. We were at 130 just about 4 years back, but today we are at 63%. We have jumped these multiple positions because almost on a daily basis, the government of India and the multiple departments are sitting down to listen to the investors, understand what is it they want in India. We hear them and we have a commitment to make to the investor, and we make the commitment saying we will do it, we will get it done, because of which today we are at 63. But I'm pretty sure this year when we are having the ranking again, our ranking is going to drop even further. Today, not only earlier India was looked at as the hub for low-cost manufacturing, but today that's not the case. India is developing not just in the manufacturing. Our USP is not just low-cost. We provide value to investors across, right from the R&D to the sales and marketing as well, research and design. Today, Samsung has the largest R&D center in India outside of Korea. Similar is the case for Intel, Apple, Amazon, Google, and Uber as well. So some of the key government reforms and highlights are, one thing that I feel we don't talk about enough is the attractive corporate tax regime. In 2019, our Finance Minister, Ms. Nirmala Sitharaman, announced a landmark reform in the reduction of the corporate tax. Today, India stands the lowest in Asia. India, on the right, you can see the chart that shows today India is at 15% tax. Singapore is at 17, Thailand, Vietnam is at 20, Malaysia at 24, China at 25, and Indonesia is 25%. But India took that very bold reform to encourage more investors to look at India and come to India. The other key reforms most of the reforms have happened in the last 1 year to empower us to grow more conducive for the investors here in India, and to make it even more valuable to the investors. We have something called the Empowered Group of Secretaries and something called the Project Development. Both these committees were set up last year in June 2020 with the sole purpose of how can I make it faster, how can I make it easier for the investors, and how can I provide more access to the investors here in India. So rest of all the initiatives that are there, everything revolves around these three core principles as well. Even in February, when India announced the budget, it was critiqued to be one of the most pro-industry budgets that has come out in the recent years as well, with a focus on infrastructure, human capital, innovation, minimum government and maximum government. How can I do and what can I do to make your business function smoothly at your desired efficiency level? This is how the budget was also designed. I think I'm shooting my time, so I'm going to go quick on the budget highlights as well. But all these budget highlights are available on Invest India's website for you to go and see and understand further as well. Today, we have production-linked incentives for 13 plus sectors that have been announced. The amount of opportunities and the incentives for the foreign investor to take back from these schemes are tremendous. I would really urge each of the companies across all sectors to explore that. Feel free to reach out the consulate, AKM partners, or Invest India for us to help you further with the information as well. Before I wrap up, I want to mention about the social infrastructure that is there in India. The image of India. Suman, can I take 1 more minute?
Please go ahead.
Yes, okay. So I want to talk about the social infrastructure that is present there today in India. So one of the earliest and the most strong, feedback that we received from the investor is that, it is getting, little difficult for them to come identify land, sit on it, develop, construct things. So they wanted something ready to move in facilities as well. So today there are enough plug and play facilities where they come, see if they like something, they book a property, they book a commercial space and manufacturing space there. And many of these industrial park provides a service of build to suit facility that they can build and give you almost in a record time, or they have already built a facility in which they can just walk in as well. So basis this, the government of India, every state government is also coming up with plug and play facilities in their government owned land banks as well for all the investors to make use of. So I want to, take a minute to say today the social infrastructural facilities in India, especially all the metros, tier 1 cities, are on par with some of the world-class cities. I've had the good opportunity and the fortune to visit Tokyo once in my life. Today, I can tell you most of the cuisines that you get in Tokyo, you are able to get here in India in all the tier 1 cities. The yakinori seaweed wrapper is today a common item you will find in several of the supermarkets, and I can assure you of that because I really like sushi and I make sushi every week. And the sushi rice and the yakinori wrappers you will get in I get sushi wrappers easier than I'm able to get a traditional Indian millet today. So that is the level, the grassroots level to which the lifestyle, the demand for all the Indians as well as the foreign expats who are settling in India. The supermarkets and the local places are able to adapt and cater. The number of international schools are plenty in all of these cities. At least a dozen international schools are available in all the metros. The healthcare facilities are on power. So much to the extent medical tourism is an evolving sector in India. So you do have world-class facilities. In terms of recreational sports, weekend leisure activities, everything is on par with some of the tier 1 cities across the world. India is today able to match up with that. So Invest India has a profiling made of some of the 11 cities across 9 states, and we have covered the city profile, the international events, what are all the shopping mall, what are all the leisure spots, the cuisines, what are all, I know Japanese like to have a good lifestyle, especially over the weekend, what are all the pubs, the markets, the activities, international school for your children, your family welfare events and activities. So we do have a list of profiling of 11 cities across 9 states. I would be very happy to share that with you if any of you are interested to understand a little bit more about Invest India as well. So on that note, I think I have overshot a little bit. I'm happy to share my presentation, detailed presentation with everybody, as and when you can let me know whoever wants. So on that note, thank you very much. We are always here to help you. Feel free to get in touch with Invest India at any time. We will truly be a one-stop shop and the first point of reference that are going to handhold you and help you come to India and ensure you have a successful business in India. Thank you so much.
you, Sudha, for a very insightful and crisp presentation on the support provided by the Indian government. It's now my privilege to introduce the next speaker, Mr. Kk Baloo. Mr. Kk Baloo is a corporate lawyer and a senior advisor at AK Mylsamy and Associates LLP. He has over 53 years of legal and judicial experience. He obtained training in India and abroad on banking, housing, microfinance, and tax planning. He held senior positions in the National Housing Bank and Syndicate Bank. He was a legal advisor for various banks, and he was also a director of the Karur Vysya Bank. In his judicial experience, he was the vice chairman of the Company Law Board. For the benefit of our participants from Japan, the Company Law Board was a tribunal or a court dealing with company cases and corporate cases. And Mr. Baloo headed this judicial position as a judge for over 12 years, handling the entire corporate cases for South India through the Company Law Board. I request Mr. Kk Baloo to take over the presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Suman, for your nice words about me. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. The present webinar is on investing in India, recent initiatives. You will agree, investment and industry represent two sides of a coin. They always go together. In this context, I am addressing on essential aspects of Tamil Nadu Industrial Policy 2021, containing the initiatives introduced by the state. In view of paucity of time, I would like to go straight to the subject. Before that, let us see the envious position of the state. Slide 2. Slide 2. Tamil Nadu enjoys the privilege of being an industrial powerhouse of the nation. It contributes around 8.4% of the country's GDP. It is the largest hub for various industrial manufacturing sectors such as automobiles, auto components, textiles, leather products, light and heavy engineering, pumps and motors, etc. Over 70 Fortune 500 companies have set up their manufacturing facilities in Tamil Nadu. Tamil Nadu is the top 10 list of the country for the availability of employable labor force and talent. Conducive business environment and the state's strategic location on the Coromandel coast add to the advantages in setting up the industries in the state. The state is providing world-class infrastructure, healthy investment climate, and improved quality of governance towards growth of manufacturing and associate services. Tamil Nadu has achieved annual growth of 14% in the manufacturing sector and over 26% of growth across all sectors. Tamil Nadu is marching towards a digitalized form of service, keeping in pace with the speeding technology. You will know Tamil Nadu has several awards and applause to its credit. Slide 3. That is why perhaps more than 300 MOUs with investment value of over 4,500 billion yen were secured in the Global Investor Meet 2019. Moreover, 41 MOUs were signed in the international investor roadshows with investment value of over 130 billion yen. Above all, 55 MOUs were signed even during COVID-19 pandemic time with over 600 billion yen. Against this background, Tamil Nadu Industrial Policy of 2021 assumes greater relevance. Slide 4. You see, the industrial policy essentially envisages infrastructure which include industrial parks and land bank creation, transports, logistics, industrial corridors, connectivity, energy and water resources management, IT sector. These are followed by industrial growth through incentives, sustainable environment, innovative and technological development, encouragement of FDIs, and delivery of incentives in an efficient and time-bound manner. The industrial policy promotes focus sectors as well as sunrise sectors. Focus sectors include automobile, auto components, chemicals, electronics, hardware, etc. Sunrise sectors are sectors which form part of focus sectors or overlap the focus sectors which are listed in the policy itself. Slide 5. You may see several of the incentives being extended by the state of Tamil Nadu. Number 1, developing a comprehensive industrial ecosystem and providing an enabling environment for startups, focusing on research and development as well as innovation. SIPCOT is establishing industrial innovation centers to accelerate the adoption of technology in industrial projects. Launching of blockchain policy, which means single platform policy, and artificial intelligence policy for technological acceleration. Next is continuing the existing reservation policy of 20% of land area in SIPCOT industrial parks for MSMEs. Developing integrated townships, encouraging employment for women, locals, transgenders, persons from SC, ST communities, and moreover, differently abled persons. Towards ease of business, providing land allotment, property registration, construction, permit, environmental registration, utility permits, labor regulations, sector-specific reforms, inspection, indirect filing, contract enforcement, procurement, etc. Setting up of industrial units, transit corridors, and 25% of parking space relaxation, which is very essential for all industries set up within 3 kilometers of railway stations. Giving online permission, very, very essential, and building approvals without inspection to industrial units set up by industrial parks promoted by government agencies. Thereafter, establishment of plug and play facilities in case of industrial parks promoted by government agencies. Not but at the least, permitting maximum floor space index free of cost in favor of industrial parks set up by government promoted agency. Slide 6. There are several incentives and investment subsidy options for various types of investments. You may be interested. One of the most important investment is foreign direct investment, which attracts the special incentives. They are investment promotion subsidy. This includes state goods and service reimbursement, that is SGST, fixed capital subsidy, flexible capital subsidy, turnover-based subsidy, imported machinery, transport subsidy, R&D training incentive, land cost subsidy, SGST refund on capital goods, standard incentives. 7. Standard incentives include electricity tax incentive, stamp duty incentive, greenery industry incentive, quality certification incentive, and intellectual property creation incentive. Next, 8. Similarly, large, mega, ultra mega projects have many incentives such as investment promotion subsidy, SGST reimbursement for final products, fixed capital interest subsidy, flexible capital subsidy, turnover based subsidy, training subsidy, land cost incentive, interest subvention, some standard incentives like stamp duty incentive, enhanced incentive for quality certification, enhanced incentive for intellectual property creation. You will see from the slide some of the incentives available for large mega projects are extended to sunrise sectors also. Slide 9. R&D projects enjoy special incentives like land cost incentive for standalone R&D projects, R&D training incentive, enhanced incentive for quality certification, enhanced incentive for intellectual property creation. So far as logistic infrastructure is concerned, you will note it has training subsidy. 10. Various criteria are prescribed to claim incentive in respect of different projects. They depending upon investment range, period of investment. You will see from the presentation the slides, the minimum employment. They prescribe the facilities 11, and also prescribe the requirements. So unless and until the prescribed criteria are satisfied, you will not be eligible for incentives. Eligible industries which are entitled for incentive are specified in the policy itself. The policy lays down application for incentives shall be made through a single window portal which would be scrutinized and sanctioned by competent authorities specified in the policy. The policy stipulates general conditions for availing incentives which are very, very essential. Number 1, industrial entrepreneurial memorandum shall be filed. Secondly, should have a permanent account number, tax registration number, and regularly you should file returns. You must hold registered sale or lease deed for the period equal to more than the period of incentives. Committed investment, employment, and production shall be achieved within the investment period. If the company's proposal involves multiple locations in the state, the criteria that hold the highest investment would be taken into account for the rest of the project. The incentives shall stand withdrawn if the project is not completed as per the plan. The policy also envisages general conditions, kindly note, for sanctioning incentives. Projects classified as MSMEs do not qualify. Ceiling of incentives shall not be more than total investments in eligible fixed assets. Project in existence for over 10 years will be given suitable benefits for expansion. New manufacturing facilities set up by an existing company will be considered as an expansion of the project. Investment period shall be reckoned either from the date of MOU or as defined by the government. Projects for which incentives have been accepted under the Tamil Nadu policy of 2014 or earlier will not be eligible under the policy of 2021. Projects getting financial assistance from Government of India can claim benefits under the Tamil Nadu policy also. Ladies and gentlemen, benefits are in abundance. You may seize the opportunity. Now the ball is in your court. If missed, one will return tomorrow. Today will never come again. With these relevant features of Tamil Nadu Industrial Policy 2021, I would like to conclude my remarks. I will be pleased to clarify any issue that you may raise. I am thankful to all of you for providing this excellent opportunity. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Baloo, for your Thank you, Mr. Baloo, for your crisp presentation on investing in Tamil Nadu. We now move on to the next session of Mr. R. Sridhar. It's my pleasure to introduce Mr. Sridhar to you. Mr. Sridhar is a tax partner at Grant Thornton, India. He's a company secretary and lawyer by qualification. He has over 23 years of experience in tax and regulatory matters. He specializes in investment structuring, corporate restructuring, tax planning, and provides assistance with ongoing compliance requirements under Indian tax and corporate laws, including foreign exchange regulations. He has authored a book on Foreign Exchange Management Act, which is an easy-to-use ready reckoner, which includes his expert commentary on practical aspects of exchange law in India. I request Mr. Sridhar to take over the session, sir.
Thank you very much, Suman, for that introduction, and very good afternoon, good evening, everyone joining into this program. It's always a pleasure to talk about foreign direct investment, which has been very close to my heart. If we can have the slides up, please. And while the slides come up, the good part about the FDI policy today is that you will see that India's FDI policy has been very consistent, which means that we haven't seen too much of changes from where the policy was as compared to the last couple of years. In that sense, stability has always been a good benchmark to set from an FDI policy perspective. I will start my presentation with an understanding of the framework of the possible entities that you can have in India with foreign investment. So if you go to my next slide, you will see that there are broadly 4 possible entity options that you have when you consider setting up in India. The first one being the logical one, which is the company form. Within the company form, and when I say company, it means a company that is incorporated under the Companies Act of India. The company entity in itself can be a private limited company or a public limited company or even a listed company if you intend to list this company in future. Obviously, the features include that the company form is a separate legal entity liable to be sued in its own name as well as with limited liability. It is a tax resident in India, and like Sai Sudha mentioned, there are different rates for the company form, especially in the manufacturing sector, which are incentivizing the company form at this point in time. You do need 2 directors to be there in the company form and at least 2 members. Now the company law also permits a 1-person company, and in the recent budget, the government has also allowed non-resident Indian investments to come through in the 1-person company form. But from a foreign direct investment perspective, the private limited company form is the most prevalent form of doing business in India. And it gives sufficient control and ownership to the foreign principal if this was to be a wholly owned entity, or you could even consider a joint venture through this form of business. The next form of business is the limited liability partnership form, which is governed under the Limited Liability Partnership Act of 2008. The LLP again is a separate form of business entity. It is capable of owning property in its own name. It is taxed as a resident firm in India. The tax rate is slightly different to that of the company firm. At present, it is effectively taxed at around 34% tax. There is a need to have at least 2 individuals as designated partners, which is the equivalent of the director in the company form. And one of those should be a resident in India. That's the minimum requirement. And there is a lot of flexibility in management, control, and profit and ownership of the limited liability partnership form. But given the constraints of the form itself, mostly services entities end up choosing this form of business, where they are willing to work through a partnership form. The next form is the branch or project office form, which is essentially the foreign company doing that business directly in India. The tax rate significantly shifts in that form as a foreign company. And the branch or project office entities are regulated by the Reserve Bank of India under the exchange control law, which means that their activities are monitored and limited. For instance, branch or project offices cannot undertake manufacturing activities, and project offices are limited to do and execute the project which they are set up for. So if they are, say for instance, working on a metro rail project, they should be limiting their activities to that particular project. If they get another project, you are expected to open another project office to execute the other project. The tax rate for such branch or project offices, unfortunately, as of today, is at 40% plus applicable surcharge. But there's no further tax on branch profits or distribution, and therefore this is a good form of business which exists if you intend to close down the business and you're not looking at long run activities in India. The last form is the liaison office form, which is essentially exploratory in nature. Again, it's an extension of the foreign company form, and therefore its activities are limited to communication and liaison. There is no separate legal form or status to the liaison office entity form, and the funding of this office is usually done by the headquarters, and there is no income or revenue that the liaison office is expected to earn or accrue from India. Broadly, these are the 4 forms of businesses that you can consider with foreign investment. Other forms of business, for example, as a partnership or as a sole proprietorship, are not so open for foreign investments today. And there are restrictions on prior permissions of the regulator for you to be able to consider those forms. And therefore, I'm not kind of picking them up at this point in time. If you go to the next slide, you will see that FDI policy in itself has significantly changed and got liberalized over the years. The nodal department is the Department of Promotion for Industry and Internal Trade. And as you saw, SAI is an extension of that department in itself. And therefore, they oversee this more directly. The law in itself is enshrined in the Foreign Exchange Management Act, and these are notified through rules which are issued by the central government. Most of the compliance is done online, and therefore we have moved from a physical documentation form to an online single portal interface through the Government of India's portal called the FIFP, which a link of this is provided in this slide. Most of the activities are permitted under the automatic route, as we call it, which means that you don't need any approvals, prior approval of any regulator to set up that activity, particularly from an FDI perspective. Recent changes include clarifying that contract manufacturing activity in itself is something that is permitted under the automatic route. So you could even consider manufacturing your products through a third-party service provider and then selling those products in India using the contract manufacturing facility. There are still some restricted activities which are sectors such as private banking, insurance. This year, the budget has changed the threshold of foreign investment up from 49% to 74% in core insurance services. This is a welcome move for large insurance businesses to kind of consider India seriously. Of course, there are ring fencing on the company being management of that company being with Indian residents, which is natural. Similar restrictions exist in multi-brand retail, print media, and defense, which are considered to be sensitive in sectors. There is a prohibited list as well, and naturally every country has some of its sectors which they believe are to be restricted. These include agriculture, gambling, real estate, tobacco, and atomic energy. If you go to the next slide, you will see that some of the recent changes that have happened in the FDI policy are around investments from China, Pakistan, Bangladesh, and Myanmar being subjected to a greater level of scrutiny through the approval route, and relaxation in FDI in particularly the non-resident investment, Indian non-resident investor diaspora being permitted to invest more freely. You will see the list has got increasingly free for railways, insurance intermediaries, coal mining, single brand retail, as well as air transport. If you go to the next slide, and I'll spend a minute, and that should be my end of my presentation. There are multiple ways to fund your business, and this needs some planning. Broadly, there are three windows that you could consider: shares, external commercial borrowings, and others. And others would essentially mean convertible notes if you're a startup, if you're a listed non-convertible debenture is also an instrument to consider, and investments through the International Financial Services Center, which India is promoting fairly significantly, is the other possibilities. But traditionally, controlled companies prefer the shares or the external commercial borrowings, which is essentially borrowings from overseas routes for investments. Specific advice is recommended, and therefore I would kind of hold back more detailed conversations to more specific advice. Happy to take any specific questions on this matter. With that, I'd like to kind of close my presentation and hand back over to Suman-san. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sridhar sir. It's a pleasure in introducing yet another very senior professor, specialization in corporate tax, mergers, demergers, and acquisitions. He was the executive vice president group. Merger and another book titled Brands, Concepts, Costs and Case Studies. He's a lecturer at the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India, Institute of Boston Works Accountants of India, Institute of Company Secretaries of India, Institute of Chartered Financial Analysts, and visiting faculty at the Indian Institute of Management, Bangalore. We're privileged to have Mr. S. Ramanujam as part of Kk Mylsamy Associates LLP. Kindly take over, sir.
Yeah. Good evening to all of you. Welcome to India, to my Japanese friends. Friends, you can always start your business in 2-3 methods. One, you can start a greenfield project in India, or you can even take over an existing company. So these are the two things which you can always do, and you can become a shareholder in an existing Indian company. So the opportunities are there, and what is the reward which you can expect?
Sir, I'm sorry to interrupt. Your volume is too feeble, sir. Sorry to interrupt. Your volume is too feeble, sir. Can you just increase your volume if you don't mind, sir? Thank you, sir.
See, yeah, the Japanese entities can invest in India either, by taking over an existing company or start a greenfield project. What is the reward that can flow to them, particularly the foreign partners? There are the traditional approaches. One is the interest which they can get from the Indian entity. The tax rate is again 10% under the Indian Indo-Japanese treaty, or 20% rate as per the Indian tax laws. Similarly, in the case of dividend, there are two rates, one under the income tax rate, another is the treaty rate. Treaty rates are always lower. Please understand that the Income Tax Act contains a very peculiar and specific provision extending concessions to all the people, saying that, look, if you feel that you are more advantageous, you are going to get more advantage by opting for the treaty rates, please go ahead and do it. You can choose the best thing for you, either the treaty rate or the income tax rate prescribed under the Income Tax Act. So this is one unique thing in Indian tax laws, which all of you can, definitely look at. Can I have the second slide, please? The next one, again, there are, there are a lot of changes which keeps on taking place. The government has done a lot of things to improve the system, the existing system. They have said that, look, we will give you a lot of concessions for people who are investing in, foreign currency bonds, like 5% withholding tax. And then for startup, there is a 100% tax holiday for 3 years, which they can choose in the first 10 years of their existence. And even sovereign wealth funds can invest in India. So, and they will also get a concessional tax rate. And, initially there will be a tax exemption for dividends, interest, and capital gains. So, therefore, the investment should be locked up for a period of 3 years. These are all things, some of the things which keeps on happening. The next thing which we can always look at is can I have the next slide, please? The tax rates. The tax rates are, again, Sai Sudha mentioned that is about a manufacturing company, the tax rate is 15%, and for other corporates, it is 22%. Of course, this comes with the surcharge and the cess and all that. But the point is, still it is the cheapest, and you have, you can take the advantage. In fact, most of the companies, I can say, the companies in India are today, the Indian companies are making a lot of profit, and they're also distributing a lot of dividend. And if you are a Japanese investor, you can expect a lot of dividend to come to you because of the lowering of the tax rate, which just happened last year. Can I have the next slide, please? Then there is, of course, a limited liability partnership. The tax rate is again 30% plus surcharge and all that. And can I have the next slide, please? This is the most interesting thing. There are a lot of interesting case laws involving Japanese people in India. They always come through a joint venture arrangement. The joint venture arrangement, the Indian partner and the Japanese company start a separate company known as Special Purpose Vehicle. It is nothing but another new company started where both the Japanese company and the Indian company are partners. So this is called joint venture. This is a contractual arrangement where the economic activity is undertaken by the separate entity started. The joint venture is defined as jointly controlled operations, jointly owned assets, and jointly owned entities. These are all operated through special purpose vehicle. Now, how this joint venture is assessed? The individual shares of each person is assessed normally. So that's how it is. There is no question of combining both the share of both the people, that is namely the Japanese partner and the Indian partner. It is not aggregated unless otherwise there is a, the clauses in the agreement prove otherwise. In fact, in one of the companies, one of joint venture case laws, which is, reported is that a Japanese company carried on certain businesses, certain part of the activities in Japan, and the Indian counterpart did the other part of the activities in India. So the Income Tax Department tried to assess both the things as one single entity known as association of persons. But the authority for advanced holding said no. These are all two different things. The contractual terms very clearly define what is work to be done by the foreign company in Japan and the other company in India, and therefore you cannot aggregate and tax everything on one single entity. So this is again a very interesting thing. Most of the people follow this joint venture approach, and for a MSME, this is the ideal thing for you. Can I have the next slide, please? Can I have the next slide, please? Yeah. The Indian tax laws are all both resident-based and both source-based, and we have the budgets are usually announced on 1st of February, and we have the Central Board of Direct Taxes, which gives you beneficial circulars all the time, and we have a good legal remedies, etc. But please follow one important thing. We follow almost the international norms in everything. We have the GAR, which is called General Anti-Avoidance Rules. We have international taxation. Can I have the next slide, please? This is a very interesting thing. We have got the transfer pricing law, just like in Japan, and we determine the arm's length price if there is a transaction between related parties. And to avoid all these disputes, the government of India, the CBDT, also approves the advanced pricing arrangements for a period of 5 years, so that the price is fixed, and therefore there will not be any dispute on this. The income tax department will not dispute on this. At the same time, if you are trying to have more in the interest as a deduction, claim a deduction, there is a restriction which is provided, which says that, look, you cannot have interest paid to a non-resident associate beyond 30% of earnings before interest, tax, and depreciation and amortization. The new law, which is a very important thing, which is called a new equalization levy. This is now charged at 2% of the non-residents directly selling goods or services through digital platform without establishing permanent establishment or entities in India. This law is not part of the Income Tax Act, but this is a part of the Finance Act. The unique thing about this is the equalization levy. You cannot get a credit under the double taxation treaty, but the compliance has to be done by the non-resident, and therefore it is advisable for all of you to approach a proper consultant to get how to follow and how to comply with this law. The equalization levy is not applicable if services are otherwise taxable as a royalty or fee for technical services, and therefore once the TDS is deducted, equalization levy is not applicable. Friends, there are a lot of things which you can go on talking about it. I will close now, but if there are any questions which you have anything, you can either write to us or I will clarify if the time permits. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ramanujan, for your very insightful presentation on income tax aspects on doing business in India. I now take the pleasure and honor to Dr. Yasunaga-san is the head of the United Nations Industrial Development Organization, Investment and Technology Promotion Office in Tokyo, UNIDO as we call them, and he's been the head of UNIDO from 2017 onwards. Joining UNIDO, Dr. Yasunaga-san had an extensive career with Japan's economy, trade and industry, with expertise in natural resources and industrial science technology development, including serving as Vice President of Japan's National Institute of Advanced Industrial Science and Technology. Dr. Yasunaga-san holds an engineering degree in Resource Development Engineering from the University of Tokyo and an MSc in Mineral Economics from the Colorado School of Mines, USA, and a PhD in engineering from the University of Tokyo. I thank you for joining us, sir. I request you to give the closing remarks of this webinar.
Thank you very much, Usman-san, for your very kind, very detailed introduction. Distinguished guests and speakers, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for your participation in this seminar hosted by AK Mylsamy and Associates LLP and Indo-Japan Chamber of Commerce and Industry, and co-hosted by Investment and Technology Promotion Office, Tokyo UNIDO. I am Yuko Yasunaga, as introduced, head of this office, UNIDO, Tokyo office UNIDO. It is my great honor and pleasure to congratulate the success of this seminar with all the speakers and audience today. Let's review very briefly about the presentation today. First, Ms. Suguna Lamamu's opening remarks gave us a very, very insightful orientation of this seminar with the emphasis of long-term relationship and trust and commitment. And the Honorable Consul General of India, Mr. Sham's keynote speech was very encouraging for us, for our Japanese the people and Japanese businessmen, since that presentation, keynote speech, was presented with the Make in India policy and sector-specific industrial promotion plan, which must be very helpful for all future investors from Japan. And we learned a lot about India's most updated policies and reforms for foreign direct investments promotion from Mr. Suda, Senior Assistant Vice President of Invest India, Government of India. From the presentation by Mr. Baloo, we well understood the opportunities and attractiveness of Tamil Nadu as an investment destination for Japanese investors. Mr. Sridhar's presentation was very informative and practical for investors by illustrating the various entry options to Indian market. And finally, Mr. Lamanujam's presentation also gave us the practical and helpful information about taxation scheme, which must help business person in assessing commercial feasibility. UNIDO is, as introduced, mandated to promote private investment and technology transfer to achieve ISID, inclusive and sustainable industrial development in developing emerging countries. And UNIDO ITPO Tokyo is doing that, especially from Japan to those countries with active cooperation with various stakeholders. I am firmly convinced that today's seminar gave us very rich information, backgrounds, and practical suggestions. In the sense, we expect that many Japanese companies which join today feel that now is the time to make investment to India. If you feel so, UNIDO ITPO Tokyo and our colleagues and partner organizations here can support all the potential investors from various aspects. Thank you very much for your attention, and thank you very much for your cooperation. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your kind not this program, and I have an announcement to make. All the there on the website, details are there on the chat box for your attention. Japan can assist businesses and Japanese businesses with their business requirements in India through their exclusive Japan. You can get in touch with the Indo-Japan Chamber of Commerce on this aspect. Two very important announcements from Japan. The organizers doing the India and the banks of Tamil Nadu will be happy to hold one-on-one government to business meetings with foreign investors from Japan to facilitate your investments into the country. Please make use of this special opportunity to get in touch with them. The Indo-Japan Chamber of Commerce has conducted a very important survey of Japanese industry. On the website of the Indo-Japan Chamber of Commerce, and please feel free to contact this webinar for any. I once again express my sincere thanks to each of the speakers for taking your time out and participating in this webinar with such great interest. A special thanks once again to Yasunaga-san and his team, our entire team at UNIDO. Together, we all hope that we have initiated a very positive impact and a big boost to the economies of both Japan and India through this webinar. I request all of you to take care and stay safe. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Yasunaga-san.
Thank you.
Thank you, Suguna-san. Thank you.
Nice,
Thank you,
happy.
Suman-san.
So
Thank you very much.
Gallagher-san is there next week. Ferda-san.
Yes, he must be here.
Maybe I can see his face. It's gone quite some time since we met him also.
We should close.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.